Hello and welcome to episode number 236. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. Nice to have you with us. A little over a year ago, I decided that I wanted to take a preparation course for the PMI-ACP exam. I looked around and found a company that held a course in San Diego, which is about an hour's drive away for me. I signed up and was sorely disappointed by the low-quality training materials that the class used. The only two good things about the class were the teacher, who managed to keep it interesting despite the not-so-well-designed curriculum, and that I made a few new friends. And by the way, I happen to have spoken to this teacher just this morning, and he told me that this training class then actually hired him to improve their training materials, and it seems that their feedback on the training material has now much improved. Anyway, about a month ago, one of these new friends that I made at the class wrote to me and said that he had just passed his PMI-ACP exam. His name is Felix Rogers, and I jumped at the opportunity to interview him about how he went from that classroom experience to actually passing the exam. And this is what I liked about his experience, because we often hear from certified project managers that they had also taken a disappointing class, but then they still managed to pass their exams. How did they do that? So far, I have never had a chance to speak with someone in that particular situation, and it turns out that for Felix, it was hard work and lots of studying. As you know, the rules of any PMI exam are such that we are not allowed to discuss specific questions from the exam, but we can discuss his overall experience, general thoughts on the process, and his recommendations to you. So you can look forward to an experience and tip-filled interview on how to prepare for and pass your PMI-ACP exam, even if your classroom experience was not all that stellar. And now, here's another PMI-ACP exam retrospective. Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcast's feature interview.
Today with Felix Rogers, Project Manager at Booz Allen Hamilton.
Hello, Felix, and welcome to the Agile Prepcast.
Hey, friend. How you doing, Cornelius?
I'm doing very well. So, as always, in these interviews, I'm starting out with congratulations. Congratulations on passing your PMI-ACP exam.
Well, thank you very much. It took a lot of effort. A lot of studying, but I am so excited to have it and be able to use these kinds of skills and techniques in my current job and any other future endeavor. So I'm really excited about my PMI-ACP certification.
Right. And of course, we have to mention that you beat me because you and we originally met down in San Diego when we attended, was it a 3-day PMI-ACP class? I think it was 2 or 3 days, right?
Yeah, it actually was. It was a 3-day class, and I wasn't sure how well I was going to take the class. It was 8 hours. You sit in the classroom and you kind of go over the content, but it was really interesting stuff. And even though the actual study guide wasn't as up to par as I remember you and I talked about not liking that, but the course itself, the content was let's be blunt, it was rubbish. Exactly.
It was absolute rubbish. The class was really, really bad.
But the instructor was awesome. So yeah,
the instructor was awesome.
Yeah, and that's why, and he helped to overlay some of the absence of the content. So when we have issues with content, he would be able to jump in with a story of some of his work experience and some of these large companies and some of the project he's worked on. So overall, all in all, it kind of worked out very well. And so at the end of the class, what I should have done is taken the ACP test then, because I was ready to go and I was doing very well on my test exams. But over the course of the last year, lots kind of going on. So, but yeah, that's taking those courses. I do recommend those if a person's able to swing it. But again, it's really important to get a good teacher along with good content.
Right. Okay. Before we get into your experience, you told me just before we started this interview that you are starting up an Agile St. Louis group on LinkedIn for people who are interested in all kinds of Agile methodologies. And I suppose it's just called Agile St. Louis, but people from outside St. Louis can join as well, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We it's a few coworkers and myself. We noticed that there is a large contingency of people here in the Midwest that are really interested in these type of methodologies, and whether it's networking, whether it's working out solutions to issues people may be having at their current jobs, or just getting together and kind of propagating these techniques. We had a pretty nice turnout for our first meeting. We have a meeting coming up soon, and we have a speaker, and I mean it's really come together very, very nicely. And again, it's started off with a small group of us, and you can kind of see over the course of time that people are really into this. And it's I was kind of shocked by how many people were actually interested in that. I thought. And again, when you go through this kind of stuff, you kind of think it's just you or just the people you kind of work with. But then when you see other people kind of come and want to kind of experience these sorts of network together, it was kind of awesome. So I really enjoyed working with my coworkers to put this together.
All right, perfect. So it's called Agile St. Louis. It's on LinkedIn, and we're going to make sure that there is a link for our listeners so that they can easily find you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Back to your PMI-ACP exam experience. You already mentioned that you should have taken the exam immediately after you and I took that 3-day class. Is there anything else that if you had to do it again, you would do differently?
Yeah, with me, because the totality of my experiences had been with Scrum. So it's one of the frameworks for Agile that's actually a part of the test. And so I felt very comfortable with that portion of the test. Now, I hadn't done a lot with XP. I've done some TDD, test-driven development, but I was very kind of weak with Lean, and that was one of the things that going in, I know I didn't have a lot of experience with that. So, I bought some books and I did some reading. I wish I'd give myself a little more time to go over all of the different concepts that were going to be on the test. But and sure enough, the first few questions right at the box were boom, Lean questions. Like so as you look at those questions, you start to kind of worry that, well, am I going to have issues with this? But it got progressively better, and again, I felt very good going to the test. But spending a little bit more time going over the materials, taking test exams are always recommended.
Excellent. Why did you, however, choose to become PMI-ACP certified? Was it just the next step in your career, or was there something specific that made you do it or that prompted you to do that?
Yeah, it was the next step to my career, actually. I left my previous company after 12 years and trying to figure out, what am I going to do when I grow up? And over the last 8 of those 12 years, we became an agile environment. So we're doing a lot of agile work, and I felt that this was something that I really had a lot of interest in. So I looked out there for some certifications, and I got my Scrum Master certification. And the next extension of that is to kind of take the next step up, which is to get the Agile Certified Practitioner certification. Mm-hmm. And for the work that I currently do, it's helped out a lot. I mean, there's a lot of information that you gain through your work experience, the reading, and also just with the networking of working with other people that have these sorts of skills. So it was something that was just kind of the next evolution in what I needed to do.
Mm-hmm. So let me get this right, if I understood you correctly. You see instant applicable value in the real world by taking classes to prepare yourself and having PMI-ACP. This is not something theoretical for you. This is something practical that you're actually applying at work.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Which, again, it's you go through these things and you never realize that, whether or not these practices and techniques will work. And like, for instance, the work that I do now, I work for a defense contractor, and we're trying to change the culture and include Agile into the military and the government culture. So, I come with my hefty bag of Agile skills, and you kind of run into, this monolith. I mean, for lack of better terms, kind of what it is. I mean, for better or for worse, it's worked very well for them for a long time, but they're willing to take on these types of, they're willing to try these types of techniques. So to me, it's I love the challenge of trying to apply these things that I know work very well in the commercial world, and now take them to a world that's let's be honest, that's not usually known for quick iterative releases, and this type of it's been a strictly waterfall type of environment for a very long time. So when you ask if do I find these skills applicable, absolutely. And there's a lot of other companies here in the Midwest that are looking for these types of people. It's a thriving job market here in the Midwest.
So you and I took that very interesting class about a year ago. And so the obvious question has to be, what took you so long? I mean, in my case, I didn't have the formal 1,500 hours of agile experience required. So I'm still working on that, and I will get my PMI-ACP hopefully before the end of the year. What was it in your case?
Well, in my case, we I worked with the company for 12 years and felt that it's time to do something different, time to venture out. I didn't see a lot of opportunity in the Southern California area. Actually came out here just to kind of visit some family, and just looked around and saw what kinds of job opportunities out here, and realized there's a gigantic market in the Midwest for these types of skills. Floated some resumes around and had a ton of interviews, and had some really good job offers. But it's again, it's just opportunity kind of meeting up with my skill set, and I think that all kind of came together here now, and I'm having a great time.
How much time did you need to prepare for the exam?
I needed probably about a couple of months with a really busy work schedule, and kind of, we actually we're moving into a new home, so having to kind of go through all of that and getting your stuff shipped from your old location, new location, it was a whole thing. I spent pretty much every waking moment after work, reading and going through different materials online, and talking with. There's a couple of my coworkers that are also ACP, and so talking with them and kind of getting, what study guides did you guys use, and finding out what materials they use, and getting those materials and reading. So about a couple of months. But also keep in mind, I've worked with Scrum for over 8 years, so depending on what kind of work you've done in this type of environment, or this type of with these methodologies, it you may need more time, or you may need less. But 2 to 3 months I thought was a real good spot for me. I went into the test pretty confident about the things that I knew, and so yeah, about 2 or 3 months.
Which study guide did you use?
Believe it or not, I used that big book of bad material we talked about. You can kind of filter through and find some good stuff in there. I bought a couple of the PMI-ACP exam books. There's one by Andy Crow that was really good. I bought a couple of lean books. I bought them. Yeah, so just a lot of the exam guides are really good. And usually in the back of those PMI-ACP exam guides, they'll have a bunch of practice exams. And those are good. And usually, if you purchase these books, they'll give you a link to their website where you can have more exams. There's more test exams, and I can't stress that enough to people, that you got to go through those. The more testing that you do, the more prepared you'll be.
Did you buy an actual simulator?
I did not.
So you used the questions that you had in the back of the books, and then the books, they also had online additional tests.
Correct.
Okay. Did you read any of the PMI recommended books for the exam? They have this list of, I think it's 11 books.
Yeah, I think I went through a couple of those books. I don't have everything with me right here, but I think I went through a couple of those books. I didn't go through all 11 of those books. Because what my concern was that after a certain point, it's just a lot of information. It may be too much information. I want to kind of get to the stuff that I need to get to, and then continue to test. I didn't want to go through like 11 books to get everything. I figure about 5 or 6 books are all I really needed to get through all that I needed to get through.
Right. And the class that you and I took together, that was the only class you took, right? You didn't go to a second class by any chance?
I thought about it because I thought, wow, after taking that class, I was a well-oiled machine. I was ready to go. Again, just everything that was happening in my life at that point in time, I just missed that opportunity. So I thought, am I going to fork down another, it was a nice sum of money to go to those classes. So I didn't know if it made sense to put that much money back into this all over again. So I decided, well, let me just do my reading, and have three shots at this test. And if I don't if I don't pass the first time, I'll try it again. But luckily for me, I knocked out the box the first time.
Wonderful. You said it took you about 2 months of studying. How many hours a day would you say that you actually studied?
Probably about 2 to 3 hours on the weekdays, and a lot more on the weekends. And the weekends, obviously, I had more time to do a lot of my reading and to do a lot of the practice exams. So probably around 2 to 3 hours a night average. I mean, some nights more, some nights less. But usually, because when I'm in that mode where I know that there's something I needed to learn, I can get kind of hyper focused. And this is something I knew I needed to do. I had a date for the test, so I was just kind of filtering everything towards that date.
So you made, you took the advice that I give all of my students when I say, go out there, get yourself an exam date. As soon as you qualify, as soon as you have the qualifications, set a date. Make sure you know that on the 15th of that month at 9 o'clock in the morning, I have my exam, and you work your way towards that day, towards that hour, because that gives you the pressure, sort of it focuses you and your attention.
Yeah, that's great advice, and it's exactly what it did for me. It actually did. Now, I will have to admit that I did have to plunk down my $70 to change my data time or two, because again, the first when I was going to take the test one time in San Diego and changed my mind, like, well, let me wait till I get to St. Louis, and then I decided to take it here. But once I had that final date, I was like, look, I'm not going to pay any more money to move my test date. April 18th is going to be my day, which was kind of special because it was the day before my birthday and it was going into the weekend. So I was either going to have a fantastic birthday or I was going to make everyone around me miserable. So, well,
it was a great birthday.
So I had an additional incentive.
Wonderful. Out of all the study materials that you used, which one would you say was the number one study material that you used again and again, and that was the most helpful for you?
The PMI-ACP exam, Andy, I think it's Crow, How to Pass on Your First Try, and it's a really good book. It's broken up into it's an easy to read book. I actually went through this book about 3 times, and it has some really good exams, test exams in the back. And what was interesting about these questions is that when I actually took the test, he wasn't too far off as far as the what I saw in the test and what I actually saw kind of in the book. Because what the test tries, what it does is that you have a firm grasp on these principles, and they're locked and loaded in your head, and you're good to go. And the question it'll ask you a question, but it'll just twist it just a little bit to kind of make you take a second and a third and a fourth look at that question. So when you do more of these practice exams, then you're able to kind of, if you're solid with your principles, you always refer back to that. He has like a lot of good little nuggets in the book, like, if you're in doubt of answering a question, always rely on what the actual principles, the agile principles. Go back to that. And I did that for more than a few questions, and turns out all in all, it turned out well for me.
And when you say agile principles, here we're talking about the Agile Manifesto and also the Scrum documentation, right? The Scrum Guide.
Yeah, well, there's 12 principles. Yeah, so those and the manifesto. So again, when in doubt, kind of go back to those 12 principles.
All right. You already mentioned that you had initial questions about lean and you wished you had studied lean a bit more. Was there any other topic on the exam that you say, oh man, next to lean, this was another one that I wish I had studied more?
Well, XP. I mean, I had not worked in XP at all. So XP and lean essentially were, these weren't things I actually put my hands on, but these were book learned skills. And to me, I seem to learn better when I'm actually doing things. So that's why all the Scrum stuff was sort of a breeze for me. That stuff was locked and loaded, and I was good with that. But those other things were concepts that I had read about and not actually done or participated in. So it was a little bit more difficult for me, when I saw those questions. I mean, the Scrum stuff, boom, I went right through those. The Lean and XP questions, those are ones I had to take a little bit more time with. And when I look back and saw the questions that I marked for, at the end of the test, you can go back and you can look, you can mark questions, and at the end of the test, you can go back and change answers if you need to. And I looked at them, and pretty much all the ones I had marked were either XP or Lean.
Let's go to the other side. Did you study any topics that after the exam you said, okay, that was a waste of time, shouldn't have studied that at all?
Let me think. No, I mean, everything, I think I was pretty focused on the content that was going to be on the test, and through all my readings, I think everything worked. It helped me on the test. So there's nothing that really kind of comes to mind now as sort of a waste of time. No, I can't really think of much.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a look at a little bit about scheduling the exam and also look at the exam center, what happens there. So you already mentioned, so you originally scheduled your exam down in California in San Diego, and then you switched it over to St. Louis. Was that difficult to do, that switch?
No, on their website, it was fairly easy to do. You go there, you have to pay, I believe it was like $70 what I had to pay to I did mine twice. I switched it from St. Louis, or from San Diego to St. Louis, and then I had some timing issues here in St. Louis. So I paid a second time, but after that, I was like, no more. I'm not giving these people that much more money, so I'm going to settle in on a date and time and knock it out. But going to the Prometric website, that's a very easy website to schedule, to pay your fees, to look at all the different locations you can go to take your test. So it was, I'm very happy with the information that was on their website.
Okay, and just as an aside, the website's location, the URL is prometric.com/PMI. That will get you to the welcome page that PMI has on the Prometric website there. And just to be on the safe side also, the $70 that you paid, so that means you made the change, you rescheduled less than 30 days away from your actual exam, because my understanding is if your exam is 45 days out, you can change it without having to pay a fee.
Yeah, you're correct. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, so I was trying to figure out when I was in San Diego that, perhaps I'll be able to take it, but then I kind of felt it was going to be a rush job, and I don't want to rush this because I want to take my time. I want to make sure I get all my studying done. So I decided that I'll wait till I came here, and then here it became more of a. I just started a new job, and I was trying to find the time to actually take the test. And again, that Prometric website, I mean, the reason why it's excellent because it showed a lot of the locations where they offered the exam during work hours. Like, wow, I can't really do that. I'm going to have to take a day off. I didn't want to do that. But if you look through it enough, you'll actually find a site or two that will some of these locations will also offer Saturday testing, and that was perfect for me. That was so that was one of the options that was there. So it makes sense to look through their website to find the date and time that kind of works best for you.
Since you were in a new town, did you stop by at the Prometric Test Center before your actual exam date just to go figure out where is it? What's the parking situation like?
Okay, I feel kind of bad for this. I was actually a little late because I didn't do that, and I listened to the previous person's PMI-ACP your podcast with the other PMI-ACP person. And that was one of the things that you guys suggested, and I made a note of that. Like, I'm definitely going to do that because where I took the test isn't really local to me, and again, just a lot of my work schedule didn't permit me to get out there. And I'm like, well, now I hope my GPS takes me right there, and of course it didn't. So, but no, everything was cool. I was a couple minutes late, and they're fine with it. They didn't beat me over the head with it, and it was fine.
All right. What was it like? So you were a couple of minutes late, you arrived there. Was there a sudden rush because you were a couple of minutes late? Did they sort of rush you in to make sure that you took your exam on time? Or what happened?
It was actually, I went there and, the lady was pleasant enough, and Gave her my information. I believe I had to leave my driver's license and stuff, and locked all my stuff on the outside there with her. And she walked me back to the exam area. There was one person that was already there, and it was just basically me and that other person. So it wasn't that busy. But what I also kind of noticed at these sites, they do a lot of other types of training and types of. I saw some in the room next to us. There was some Microsoft training kind of going on over there, and so this building kind of houses a lot of this training and testing type of environment. But where I was at, it was strictly just kind of you sat in kind of a cube area, you turned on the computer, and then you kind of went through the test exam or went through the exam questions.
Mm-hmm. Were there any video cameras in the room?
Oh yeah, it's one right above your head, and as I was checking in, you can kind of see inside the room. You actually saw the cameras, keyed in on the person that was there, so they have full view of the room and everyone that was kind of in the room with you.
So what you're saying is outside where you check in, there's a desk and then there's a window in the wall so they can see into the room? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's monitors there, so the person checking you in can actually monitor any activity. And I think if you had issues or something was going on, you can kind of wave at the camera and they'll come to you, sort of a thing. So they go over their rules before they walk into the room.
Okay, so they check you in and then they go through a checklist with you and tell you you're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, and don't do this, don't do that.
Correct.
Okay. So we're going through that. You've checked in. Everything's in the locker. We're walking you in. We're sitting you down. Did you take the tutorial at the beginning of the test to see what the test was like?
Yeah, I went through the tutorial just to understand the system and didn't realize that you can actually, I think I did because I read in the book, but until I'm actually sitting there at the monitor where you can mark certain questions. So they walk you through that process of, how to mark things, how to go back, and once you're done with everything, you can kind of click and kind of give you So it kind of walk you through. It's just a quick tutorial. I don't think it took more than a couple minutes.
Okay. Did you use all the time for the questions? I believe you have 3 hours, right?
Yes, you have 3 hours. So I get in there, and again, the first questions off the bat are things that are like, oh wow, I have to take a little time with this. And the way that the questions, I thought the questions were kind of, there's you kind of break them into 3 sections, kind of hard, medium, and kind of easy questions. With kind of the bulk of the questions, they're somewhere between hard or in kind of the medium category. I remember I finished the test at about an hour and 40 minutes or so in. And I thought, wow, this is way too quick. There's just no way. I'm sorry. I was right at 2 hours. I'm sorry. I had about an hour left.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, this is way too fast. And then moreover, so while I was taking my test, another person came in and sat like 2 cubes over from me. He sat down, did his test, and he was up and out in 45 minutes. Like, what in the hell am I not doing that this guy's doing? And he could have very well been taking a whole other test. I just, just kind of those mind games that you kind of, you're playing with yourself because you're thinking, am I going at a good pace? Am I too slow? Am I too fast? I know there was 120 some odd questions, only 100 going to count. So you got to try to pace yourself to make sure that you get everything answered, and also that you provide yourself with enough time to go back and review the ones that you had some questions about. So I went back and I marked probably about 10 or 15 or so. And I had to be careful because what I have a tendency to do is overthink things, and I'll look at these things and look at them again, and B sounds kind of right, but C does too, and I'll just do C. Then let me go back to that one again. Let me try A this time. So I wanted to prevent myself from doing that because some of the answers some of the answers are very close, and it could be a word or two here that turns the whole question on its ear. It's understanding kind of the concepts and the practices and kind of having solid knowledge of that. Helps you to spot those things. You look at the questions and right away you can rule out 1 or 2. Then now you're just kind of fighting with the one or two that are the 2 that are left. And again, when in doubt, go back to the principles. According to those principles, what are they trying to get across here? What's what kind of fits best in that type of with the principles that are laid out, and that usually kind of helps you get to the right answer.
In regards to taking the exam, the exam center, the setup, the location where you were. Was there anything during that time you were there, those 3 to 4 hours, that surprised you, that was unexpected, that came sort of out of left field?
No.
No is a good answer, because that means you were well prepared.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking back, and I'm like, no, everything I felt. It's funny how when you feel prepared and you kind of go in and you like, I feel I'm 80 to 90% there, and I'm ready for pretty much anything. I was excited to take the test. I couldn't wait to take the test. So going in there, I had a lot of confidence going in, and it paid off. I mean, I did very well, I feel.
Excellent. So you click the end exam button. Is the survey after the exam mandatory, or is it optional? I get all kinds of feedback. Some people say, I had to take it. Others say, no, I didn't have to take it.
After I saw congratulations, everything else was pretty much a blur. I saw that like, okay, well, whatever they want me to do, I will do. If they ask me to sweep up the floors, I would have done that day. But I believe mine was mandatory. That's kind of what I remember. I remember not being able to click out or finish out unless I went through the survey. That's kind of what I remember.
Okay, cool. So everything's done. You see congratulations on the screen. You go outside, and then you are handed your score report, right?
Yes, yeah.
Is there anything you need to do for checkout? I mean, they took your driver's license, so they returned the driver's license to you, I suppose. Is there anything else that is required after the exam that you had to do?
No, they pretty much they stamp a seal in the bottom corner of the paper that they'll give you a paper with your test results. They'll stamp in the bottom right corner, I believe it was, and then they'll send you on your way. So yeah, it was pretty seamless.
Excellent. And from that moment on forward, you can put PMI-ACP behind your name.
I absolutely could. And by the way, that day was a miserable. It was one of the worst rainy days. There's floods going everywhere, and I'm sitting in my car with just this torrential downpour, just smiling from ear to ear. And I was, this is a beautiful day. And what in the world is wrong with Felix? Like, it's a beautiful day. I passed this.
And tomorrow's my birthday.
Tomorrow's my birthday of all things. So yeah.
Excellent. But once again, congratulations. Tell me, are you planning to take any other certifications in the future? Anything else on the horizon for you?
Which is an interesting question, because as soon as I got in my car and I'm looking at this test result, and I believe I right away on Facebook, boom, I'm posting it. Right away, all my friends, I'm posting it. And the next thing I thought about was like, what about that PMI RMP, that risk management professional? What about that? So I'm actually looking into that now. That's something else that I think I want to kind of add to my credentials as well. So over this weekend, I'm going to see if I think I'm pretty close as far as the hour. I mean, because you have to go through you have to meet the same type of criteria that you would have to for the PMI-ACP. So I'm trying to match up and see if I meet that criteria, and if I do, I'm absolutely going to start my work with to get that certification.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming on to the Agile Prepcast today and talking to us about your experience of passing the PMI-ACP exam. Thanks again, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much, Cornelius.
And that was our interview with Felix Rogers on how he passed his PMI-ACP exam. And of course, as a reminder, if you are a project manager who wants to become PMI-ACP certified, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Agile Prepcast, and study for the exam by listening to and watching the in-depth exam prep video training from agileprepcast.com. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you'll find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please do tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this, a PM proverb attributed to Geoff Rice. Project management is like juggling 3 balls: time, cost, and quality. Program management is like a troupe of circus performers standing in a circle, each juggling 3 balls and swapping balls from time to time. Until next time.